Hello and welcome to Azur META. If after this video you want to help support the channel, please check out my affiliate store at kit.co/AzurMeta. Alright guys, and welcome back to another data mine video. Today we're going to be looking at the new virtual tower event. It's another Italian event. I'm so excited. Of course, it comes right after I completed my tier list. Last time I made a PvP tier list video right before an Italian event, it got made completely obsolete right afterward. So we will see what today brings. We have a lot of things actually coming today despite it being a mini event. So let's look at the patch notes first, then we'll go into the 4 new ships, and then we'll look at the equipment after that, and I'll give you my overview of the event. So first off, Virtual Tower is going to be here for 2 weeks. This is a brand new event, but it's a mini event, so we're only going to be having like a 4 SP stages or something like that. So it's going to be a shorter event. It's only going to bring us 3 new ships and Formidable. Hear that, HMS fans? Instead of your event, we got a rerun of Formidable. I'm not going to be talking much about Formidable today. She's a decent ship that's been power crept. August von Parzival obviously does better as freezing, and Shinano obviously does better with torpedo bomber damage. However, Formidable is still formidable if you want to use her in slower PvE game modes. All of the 3 new Italian ships will get new skins. These skins will be able to be rented. There will also be new skins for Wakiba, Oshio, Archerfish, and Congo. Additionally, there will be a new cruise mission season, which will bring us a new skin for Enterprise. She's going to France for a tour of the Louvre Museum. The cruise mission will also bring us Yamashiro META, who we will talk about her stats and skills later in the video, because that also came with this data mine. Remember that Enterprise's new skin and Yamashiro META will only enter the game on April 1st when the new cruise mission season starts. Additionally, we're getting an update to the core data shop for April, which will bring the VH armor plating to the core data shop. This is an item that many people have been missing who have not been in the main events. Chenhai and Trento finally get voice lines. We get a new dorm furniture set. I kind of like this dorm furniture set. And after that, let's get right into the ships. We'll talk about the event and the equipment after I go through the ships. We have 4 to get through. The fleet tech that you obtain for these ships are as follows. Pompeo gives a +1 firepower to destroyers, which I know some people are really looking for in World 14, so that's nice. So let's start by looking at the ship that probably has the most hype for this event, Impero. Impero is a SR carrier. Historically, obviously, she was intended to be made as a battleship. She was never finished. Azur Lane is taking the creative liberty of saying that they switched her to a carrier. Not sure how much I feel about that, but instead of comparing her to Vittorio Veneto, we're going to be comparing her to Aquila here, because that's really the only ship she's going to be competing a slot for, at least in the Italian Navy. First up, stat-wise, she is medium armor. I was kind of hoping she would be heavy armor, given her history of being potentially a battleship. She does have over 7,000 health, which is not great, but it is more than Aquila, who was obviously a commercial ship before. Her aviation at 434 means that she's going to be a real carrier, and the rest of her stats just make her kind of average for a carrier, although that is well above the stats of Aquila, keep in mind. Her loadout is 233. Aquila obviously runs a 224 and has the extra torpedo bomber. However, Impero has the flip between a fighter and a dive bomber in the first slot, so she doesn't have to use fighters. This means that she can put a lot of extra damage on by not having to use fighters, by giving up those interceptors. The efficiencies are just average. One thing that I thought was interesting here, and note this is still to be determined, but I don't see any hangar bonus. This means you can't really store airstrikes with her. Keep in mind that there are 2 data mines out. One of them says this is true. The Chinese version of this data mine, which I believe is incorrect, does state that she does get the hangar. We'll have to see exactly when it comes out. It is kind of weird that it wouldn't have a hangar upgrade for Impero. It just means that, like, on manual, you wouldn't be able to store extra airstrikes. Anyway, let's look at these skills. She's only got 2 skills, and that's kind of rare for an SR. A lot of times when SRs only get 2 skills, they end up being, like, a duds. So let's see if she is. They better be good skills. Skill number 1, she gets a plus 15% aviation boost in stats. That's nice. Great. Not going to complain. Also, every 20 seconds, there's a 75% chance to fire a barrage based off the first weapon slot's plane type. So just like Aquila, she's going to have a skill that depends on which planes you equip in her variable slot. I do like this. Let's see what they are. If the first weapon slot is equipped with a fighter, load time for the first airstrike is lowered by 40%. She has a preloaded, kind of. This is an early strike. This isn't a preloaded, but that's really, really good. Not as strong as Aquila, but I really like this. 40% would put her at about the 15-second mark. It would be really nice if it was a little bit less, maybe something like the 12-second mark. 15's a little slow. I wonder, we'd have to exact calculate and see how low we can get it, but be around the 15-second mark. That means she can go under the battleships. However, she can still potentially get hit by, New Jersey's Warspites, Duca's second wave. 15 seconds is definitely not as good as like 10 or 12, but it is nice. I like this, but she does also have to have the fighter. If the first weapon slot is equipped with a dive bomber, after the second airstrike of this ship readies, deal 60% more damage for 5 seconds. This is very interesting. So first of all, it happens only on the second airstrike. It doesn't happen on the first. It doesn't happen on the third. That really takes it out of the book of being great for me. 60% damage raw is amazing, but I really don't like having to wait so long. She isn't going to get the early strike, so you're going to have to be waiting over 40 seconds for that second airstrike to come, and it only applies for 5 seconds, meaning in manual, you have to get it off right at the beginning. You have to get the planes across the screen. And also, this makes more sense why the hangar restriction exists, because you don't want the airstrike to ready the second time and you just store the first one. In theory, what you could do if she had hangars is you could store your first airstrike, not launch it, on manual, of course, and then launch double airstrikes right after the second airstrike readies, and both of those would qualify for the 60% damage boost. So actually, the hangar not existing is probably a nerf to make this second part of this skill balanced. Ironically, I probably are not going to use this. Obviously, it's pretty much irrelevant in PvP. It might have some utility in some weird PvE boss situation. I think most of the time, we're probably going to take that reduced airstrike cooldown. The barrage, though, also changes based on which plane you equip. In fighter mode, you get a pair of 100-pound bombs as well as 3 parallel torps. In dive bomber mode, you get a 500-pound bomb and a pair of 100-pound bombs. Strangely enough, I'd rather have the parallel torps and the fighter mode barrage. I was not expecting that when I read this. And with that, I would probably equip the fighter. You get the cooldown reduction on the first airstrike and the parallel torpedoes in the barrage. All right, let's move on to skill number 2. Plus 15% damage dealt. Well, what's not to like about that? In terms of damage here, we're getting a big upgrade here. She has better aviation than Aquila. She gets 15% boost to the aviation. She gets a barrage. It's 75% chance, and it does only proc at the 20-second mark, but she does have a airstrike cooldown reduction. Yeah, Aquila still gets the double preloaded, so she's gonna be the queen of revealing, but right now, Impero is on track to be dealing a lot of aviation damage. It seems that Manju and Yostar felt that the Italians really needed some air power here. I guess that's why they converted the battleship to a carrier. Anyway, continuing on with the skill. 10 seconds after the battle starts and every 20 seconds afterward, if there is a ship in the main fleet with HP higher than 20% and lower than 90%, trigger one of the following. This is a really weird activation requirement. So it's going to trigger at the 10-second mark, the 30-second mark. It requires that there's a ship between 20% and 90%. This is actually a very wide range and will probably be active unless you are in PvE and you're way over leveled. So A, if this ship has the highest HP percentage in the main fleet and there is another ship in the main fleet, this ship loses 5% of its HP, then heals another ship in the main fleet with the lowest HP for the amount lost. So basically, if she's the healthiest ship in the fleet, she can give her HP to the ship with the lowest HP. And this is the main fleet, so only the back line. B, if this ship does not have the highest HP in the fleet, the ship with the highest HP in the main fleet loses the 5% of its HP, and this ship heals for the amount lost. So there's no bonus there. You're just like taking health and transferring it from the highest to the lowest. So you're kind of all equalizing out. The healed ship gains 15% evasion for 5 seconds. That's kind of nice, although it's pretty light. That 5 seconds might not be relevant in its evasion, not evasion rate, but it's okay. If it's an Italian ship, they also heal for 183 HP. That is nothing. 183 HP to a backliner. Like, think about, like, Vittorio Veneto is at what? 8,500 HP, and you're gonna give her 183? Like, come on, that is insignificant. I don't even know why we wasted space there. So technically, she's not a net zero if there's an Italian ship that she's healing. Of course, she can heal herself, so if she's the lowest, she gets an actual heal. That's so minimal. This skill makes me mad. It's so much writing to basically be like, useless. This is a heal, but it's not a real heal. It only heals Italians, it heals them negligibly, and it just transfers health around. It could be in situations you don't want to transfer that health around. This skill irritates me. I mean, obviously the 15% damage is amazing, so I can't argue with that, but the second part of this skill, like, it's almost could be a negative. Like, there could be a situation where you're like, oh, I don't want my ships to transfer their health to the lower one. I want to, like, keep it stockpiled in a specific ship, and this one will just, you know, transfer it out. I don't know. That's more of like a PvP thing than a PvE thing. PvE, you want all your ships to really survive. I guess this can really help if your backline is being targeted by the enemy, especially if you have like battleship, like one battleship and 2 carriers, and that battleship's taking a lot of heat. This would be a way to transfer health from your hidden carriers into that battleship. That's okay. I don't know. This is kind of weird. It's just a net neutral. Honestly, I was liking Impero up until this point. I really wish she had a third skill to kind of help this out. This heal seems kind of weird. I can see where it has some utility, but she's a SR ship with only 2 skills. I do think she's going to deal a lot of damage. Of course, she does help the Italians deal aviation damage, and her early strike, while not as good as Aquila by any means, is going to hurt. Anyway, that's Impero. I will save judgment until the end of conclusion of my thoughts there, but let's move on to the other SR, and that's Pompeo Magno. She is a destroyer. She's going to be light armor. She's actually going to be pretty tanky. To put in perspective, she has like 1,000 more health, which is like almost a third of her health over the like elite destroyers the Italians had before. She's even more healthy than, say, Shimikaze, a UR. The rest of her stats leave something to be desired, though. Her firepower is right in the range of like a Yudachi retrofit. Her torpedo stat leaves much to be desired, as well as, you know, she's definitely not an evasion tank. However, I will note that her 51 speed does make her the fastest non-French ship in the game. She also has a good luck stat, so actually she'll be zooming around, and with that high HP pool, at least for a destroyer, I like her survivability so far. Holy crap, she gets a main gun +1, so she's definitely a firepower destroyer. We actually have to put that firepower back into perspective, because like when comparing her to Suzutsuki, she has much higher firepower than her, and she has a main gun +1 like her. Actually, I compared her to Yudachi Retrofit, who has a main gun +1 now, so she's really going to be like Yudachi Retrofit in her firepower capabilities, which is really nice. She's obviously not going to have the torpedo sense there, but man, when we're talking about a SR destroyer and we're saying that she's comparable to basically a UR destroyer, that's nice. I like this. She gets the 30% stat boost from auxiliary gear. I always like this one. This is one of the better destroyer limit break 3 advantages they can get, so that's nice. And man, that DD gun efficiency is at 120%. That's higher than Yudachi or Suzutsuki. This ship is going to actually deal a good chunk of firepower as a destroyer. So surprisingly, the destroyer stats have kind of actually impressed me. Let's see if the skills can keep this train rolling. She has 3 skills, although one of them is the all-out assault. This is what it looks like. Actually, that has torpedoes in it? That looks pretty good. I mean, like, that looks very good for a destroyer all-out assault. I typically don't do the all-out assaults first when I review them, but we have it here. That looks good to me. All right, let's go back to look at skill number 1. 5 seconds after the battle starts and every 20 seconds afterwards, so 5, 25, 45, etc., summon a special energy weaponry Brilliant Sun. This is going to be similar to, like, Tashkent's ferry. Actually, now that I think about it, this ship really reminds me of Tashkent. This ferry, when it's summoned, reduces the enemy hit stat by 20% for 5 seconds. And how I read that is it decreases the hit stat of all the enemies. This is a really good debuff. At the 5-second mark, at the 25-second mark, you're just like, all right, all the enemies, boom, 20% hit stat. You're gonna miss. That's actually really nice. While the enemy debuff only lasts for 5 seconds, the summon buddy lasts for 15 seconds. Brilliant Sun debuffs enemies with a special burn when it's around. So when it hits enemies, it actually gives them a special burn. This burn is obviously not going to be treated as a burn in the data, so it can stack with traditional burns. We always love when burns can stack. Honestly, this is a really good buddy that we can summon. And we already have our main gun +1 on a good destroyer efficiency and our firepower stat that's decent too. So what's not to like? Let's go to this last skill here. Increase self firepower and torpedo for 5% after defeating a fleet that stacks 3 times, so 15% max. So basically this is actually more PvE oriented, but when she completely destroys a fleet, she gets the firepower buff. 15% firepower buff, that's going to be really nice on this ship. When her self torpedoes hit, the closer the target is, the higher the damage dealt. So this basically means when you like shotgun them, they're going to be more damage. The max damage is achieved when the range is within 10. That's very close, by the way, for those of you who don't know what a range of 10 looks like in Azur lane. 15% is the max bonus that it can get. So basically she gets a 15% damage dealt to her torpedoes when you shotgun them right in the face. This is obviously going to be used more for manual players. So she looks more like a PvE fireboat destroyer. She's got a lot of firepower. She's got the main gun +1. She's got, summon buddies. She looks like she can mob really well. She obviously gets boosts over time in the sortie. Honestly, right now I'm actually more impressed with Pompeo than Impero. And Impero's a SR carrier that's the banner like target ship. I don't know. I'll have to think about this more, once we get to the end of the video for the conclusion. But my first impression, and maybe this is just because my expectations were met, but Pompeo's actually slightly impressive here. Not like amazing, but like I definitely was not expecting her to be any good. Speaking of ships I'm not expecting to be any good, let's move on to our elite heavy cruiser Trieste. She has light armor. Oh, we love when our heavy cruisers have light armor. Not. Oh boy, she's got a surface torps. We love that. Light armor, surface torp, heavy cruiser, elite. This is going to be a great ship. That HP pool is pitiful too. Honestly, the ship reminds me of like Atago before she had to get buffed. And even now, Atago's not used or any good. All right, stat-wise, she's a total dud. Let's see if there's any fun skill. Skill number 1, self-received damage from AP damage is -20%. She's already light armor, so I guess over penetration is going real hard with this one. She's got no survivability anyway. She's gonna die to like HE. Whatever. Okay, cool. If this ship is the foremost vanguard when entering the battle, she gets to heal by 5%. That's actually kind of neat because you get to, kind of pick if you want to put her in the foremost vanguard to heal. This is obviously for PvE, but if, she's dying, she can heal herself 5% by just putting her in the front. If not, self and lead vanguard get -10% damage taken. This is probably what you're going to use. Being able to stack a -10 damage taken to a different ship in the vanguard is really nice. Also, like a ship that is damaged and needs a heal, you probably aren't going to want to put in the frontmost vanguard position where she's going to take the most damage. Overall, this skill is kind of weird, doesn't fit that much, but I can't complain about giving a 10% damage taken reduction to the lead vanguard ship. That is a different ship. I really like that, actually. Also, the 10% damage taken also does help with her survivability since it looks like it's kind of lackluster elsewhere. Could be fun to use. I don't know. The more that I think about it, the 10% damage taken reduction that we can give to somebody else is actually kind of growing on me. But let's move on to skill number 2. Use a flare 10 seconds after the battle starts. This one is guaranteed guaranteed, with a 40% chance to proc every 20 seconds afterwards. So at the 10-second mark, you get a 100% chance at a flare, and at the 30-second and 50-second, you're looking at 40% chance. That's actually pretty low, but okay. Minus 25 evasion rate for the ships in the flare. We were talking about in the last PvP meta video that we need something like a flare or some sort of evasion debuff that's better. I don't think Trieste is what I had in mind, although the flare could be good in World 14. Flares are important there. The flare lasts for 10 seconds and it doesn't stack, so it's really just an evasion rate debuff for anyone in the flare happening at that 10-second mark. This ironically can be used with New Jersey really nicely. It can be used with Vittorio Veneto too, depending on how you build your Vittorio Veneto. Honestly, this is interesting. I don't know. This elite ship is got some utility in it. I mean, her stats are so awful though, and her skills are like not fully there. The last part is the all-out assault. It looks terrible. Technically, it gets enhanced when it's using Italian equipment. Then it only needs to fire every 4 shots instead of 6, so that does help it a little bit. So you do need to put an Italian gun on her. This elite ship was, I don't know what I was expecting. The stats were just so awful. It's hard for me to use this ship, but there are some fun things about this ship that I think maybe a new player could play around with. All right, before we go on to the rest of the event, we actually have one more ship today, and that's Yamashiro META. She's obviously going to be dropping on April 1st, but we have the data for her, so let's take a look at her. Stat-wise, she is heavy armor and looks pretty similar to her Yamashiro counterpart. Most depressingly of all, she also gets the only 2 main gun shots from her battleship gun that Yamashiro gets post-retrofit. This is really sad because Yamashiro normal gets 3 shots, and then when she gets her seaplane, she loses one of those shots. Yamashiro META doesn't even get the seaplane. She's considered a battleship, not a aviation battleship, and so you'd think she'd get 3 battleship shots, but she only gets 2. Pretty much makes her useless. But we'll see if there's a skill, but META ships are mostly collection only up until this point, so I don't think Yamashiro is going to change that trend. Skill number 1, proc a barrage every 15 seconds. When self HP is higher than 20%, reduce self 178 HP and enhance the barrage. So we get this barrage here, nothing that special. When she's above a certain amount of HP, she literally damages herself. She burns herself to enhance the barrage. Now, 178 HP is not much at all, so it's not a big deal, but it's kind of weird. So we're taking damage to just get a little bit better barrage. Skill number 2, she ignores the out of ammo debuff. Interesting to put on this ship, but I'll take it. Self first 3 main gun reload times are minus 50%. Okay, I like this. I like where this is going. So the reload time is cut in half for the first 3 times that she fires. This might be why they gave her only 2 battleship salvos. Maybe similar to how like the French get those, all those early salvos, but they only get like 1 or 2 shots per fire instead of 3 like traditional battleships. Oh. Well, she gets debuffed further because 50% reload time reduction is just too powerful, apparently. Even if you do take off one of the battleship gun fires in the salvo. The first salvo in the battle is going to do only 60% damage, so a 40% damage debuff there. The second one, only does 80% damage, and the third one and every salvo after that do 120% damage. So really, this is a 20% damage boost starting at the 3rd salvo, and because of the reload time reduction, that ends up being a lot quicker, right? The first 2 salvos honestly happen in what would be the 2nd salvo, basically, because the reload time is cut in half. This is actually kind of good in longer battles, but yeah, I don't know how I feel about this one. It's just too slow, I think. Yeah, maybe if she had 3 battleship gun firing, it would be a different story, but she's only firing twice. So like that 20% damage is just something she needs to like make her way back up to that 3rd battleship shot, and she's now got to wait to her third salvo. Even with the reload time reduction, it's not enough. Skill number 3, if she is equipped with a IGN equipment, the first skill damage is increased by 10%. So it's not just a damage increase by 10% for her. It's only the first skill, which if you remember is just the barrage. So that's significantly worse. If this ship doesn't have any IGN equipment, she receives 10% less damage. Honestly, that might be more important. You might want to take off IGN equipment from her, which is kind of odd, but I don't know. That one just kind of gets you to choose whether you want to be more offensive or defensive. And then her fourth and final skill is the standard one that most meta ships have, which is when fighting, humanoid sirens or bosses, she gets a boost. Hers is self-damage plus 6%. So overall, nothing too special here. I'd say she has some interesting, having that 50% reload timer reduction. That's nice, but overall, nothing too flashy here. All right, let's move on to the event, like the maps and stuff. Impero is going to be, obviously only from the gacha at 2%. Trieste is only from the gacha at 2.5%. The Yamashiro META is going to be from the cruise mission completion, the accumulation of points. Pompeo Magno is also going to be in the gacha at 0.5%, but she's also going to be in the shop for 8,000 event points. The shop's going to, have a bunch of goodies, actually. She's also going to be able to be dropped as well if you need that. In the shop, not only do we get Pompeo, but we get a new gun, the 135 millimeter, and we'll talk about that when we get into equipments, but you'll probably want to buy that from the shop unless it's absolutely terrible, but it's an SRDD gun. I don't imagine it being terrible. Cognitive arrays are going to be there. Your PR4 prints are going to be there. A lot of goodies that you're going to buy for this event. And there is actually things to grind in the map drops. The Duca gun, which is a SAP light cruiser gun, is going to drop in SP4. This is where you're going to really want to farm. I think in SP3 there's the steering gear, so if you need that, you can farm there as well. But SP4 has that gun for Duca, which is, a really pretty good gun. I mean, there are options and alternatives to that gun. I wouldn't say it's like a must pick up, but if you got the oil, you might as well do it. And the shop is going to have a lot of goodies in it too. So I would say definitely go for SP4. Also, when we look at the equipment, there's only one really new equipment. Of course, there's a purple version and a gold version. We're only going to talk about the gold version. I'm assuming that everyone's going to buy the gold version from the event shop. No one is going to really care about how many they can farm from SP4. This destroyer gun is an SAP ammo. This is the first of its kind. There is no SAP ammo for destroyer guns, so there were some things that we needed to work out. Actually, in the first release of the patch, the gun did piercing, and it could actually go to the second ship in the stack like AP ammo does for destroyer guns, but they did update that, and now it doesn't pierce anymore. So I'm assuming that that was a bug and that it shouldn't pierce and that it won't pierce. It gives 30 firepower stat and 15 AA stats, similar to the KMS AP gun from the gear shop. 14 times 4 damage is actually a lot of damage. It's not the best, but it's a good base damage. The rate of fire is right around the range of your DPS destroyer guns, between 1.5 and 1.6. That coefficient is low, but the modifiers are really interesting here. 95% against medium armor makes this the probably best DPS destroyer gun against medium armor. Medium armor is something that you do encounter with destroyers. There's a lot of Vanguard ships that are moving from light armor up to medium armor, so having something that can really eliminate those medium armors is nice. All destroyer guns are pretty much bad against those heavy armors. However, this gun is especially bad. That coefficient at 120% worries me. There's, destroyer guns, at 148% or whatever. 120 is a little bit low in my mind. I would say 130 is as low as I'd like to go. I don't know. This gun looks like very specially built for medium armor. Not for light armor, not for heavy armor, but for medium armor. Also, it doesn't have fantastic range either, so don't be putting it on your US battleships or something like that. Just don't. I could see this actually being used. It's good enough, and especially if you're newer and you haven't farmed the French events and you don't have a lot of Operation Siren prints to be wasting on destroyer guns, which are honestly not all that important. This is a good damage destroyer gun that you can pick up. It's specialized for medium armor, and that's important. So actually, this is gonna be a must pick up for me personally, and I would probably think this is probably the most important part of this event. So let's talk about my overall thoughts of the event. Overall, it's a mini event, and it kind of seems like it's a little bit rushed, like they were trying to get some of these ships out before a major event coming out. The most exciting part of this event to me is actually the new destroyer gun. That looks pretty powerful. Also, the fact that you can farm for Duca gun is actually going to be important, so make sure you do that. Spend some of your oil now. I think cube-wise, though, I'm not all that impressed. Impero has a lot of damage potential, but she's not going to take Aquila's spot, I don't think, in PvP. She could maybe take her spot in a PvE situation where you need more damage, or there's, you don't necessarily want something that's preloaded. I know there's more maps that are coming out that kind of punish preloaded carriers and stuff like that. However, I think they put a lot of balance into Impero, especially with the no hanger and things like that. So Impero, I don't know. She's weird, man. She's got really funky heal that does nothing. It's just transferring health around. She's unique though. I'll give her that. And I'm going to pick her up because, I like her design, and I also am just kind of Italian faction based, so I need to have 100% completion in the Italian faction. So I'm going to be spending my cubes on her. I can't say that I'd recommend everyone to spend their cubes, especially if you're low on cubes. I know we're not probably getting UR event till May, so you still have time. So, you don't have to stick above 400, but I would say maybe be more conservative. Spend a few cubes. We're probably going to get another major event between now and May, maybe a collab event, maybe another mini event. So just be careful with your cubes there. In fact, Pompeo Magno was very intriguing to me. This would be the ship that I would say you probably want to go in deeper on, but she is droppable, and you should be farming this event for the Duca gun. So you probably should just get her from farming, and if you don't, you have the backup in the event shop. So don't try and get her with cubes. That's just stupid. She's very easily obtainable for free just by playing the event. And then we have Trieste, which is going to be basically just collection only. I don't know, maybe not. She has that fun niche skill where she can give a 10% damage reduction to the lead Vanguard ship. But what are you giving up for it? You have to play this ship that is awful. She is a light armor torpedo heavy cruiser with, honestly, her elite level stats are like below average. And what you're getting instead is you're getting a ship that can heal herself and a ship that gives 10% damage reduction to the lead Vanguard ship. It's probably not the trade-off you want to be making, but it's technically there, and it's not something that other ships that I know of really bring, at least to that level. So if you like that trade-off, I guess it's there. She's mostly collection though. This event definitely feels like a mini event, but I'm happy. I like Italian events. I'm glad the Italian faction's getting some love. Now we need to get some HMS love. They need a UR, man. And also the French. I know we've been complaining about HMS for a while, but the French need something. I like how in this event we get the Italian event and they give like 2 shout outs to the French and the HMS. HMS gets Formidable rerun here, and the Enterprise skin is in France. So there's like these 2 little shout outs to like the British and the French being like, yeah, you guys still exist, but man, they've been going a long time without an event. I feel bad for people who are French fans and HMS fans. HMS needs a UR and France needs another event. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this video. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you aren't already and you like data mine updates like this. Take care, and until next time.